If you're still tuning into this channel, it means you are on the verge of making the playoffs. So I want to congratulate you, and the job's not done. My whole goal on this channel is to help you win a fantasy football championship in 2024. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button as we are on the way to 5,000 subscribers. But number one, when you go to make the fantasy football playoffs, we all know that it's a small percentage of the fantasy football community that makes it in each and every one of the leagues. Typically, it's between 20 to 25% of the teams. So even if I can help you in today's video get a 5%, 2%, 1% better chance of winning your overall league, that is my entire goal. Number one, do not overthink things heading into this overall playoff. We all know that we look at matchups, we look at injury, we look at how defenses have performed against certain teams, and all of that is good. We talk about this on the channel. I talk about this in all of my videos. It's important information to throw out. But the thing that I do want to say to you as you are here watching me, as you're thinking about your playoff team, number one, stick with the players that got you there. There's going to be some players that are going to come off the waiver wires. There's going to be the Nick Westbrook-Akines. There's going to be the MVSs, where you're debating those guys for some of your studs on a weekly basis, or the guys that have been up and down, the high-end wide receiver twos. For me, trust your gut. Trust those players that have gotten you to this point. Let's kind of look at some real world examples here. In my home family league, I have a team full of guys like Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, Terry McLaurin, Joe Mixon, JSN, DeAndre Swift. Like I said, it's a 10-man league. It's a family league. I like to play in 12-man leagues, but this is just a 10-man league. At the end of the day, when I'm trying to debate, am I going to be starting a guy like a Ladd McConkey, a Terry McLaurin over like a Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase? Like, of course, I'm not going to be starting Ladd McConkey over Jamar Chase. But I think Malik Neighbors has been someone that maybe if he's going to be out for an extended period of time, that'll help make my decision for me. But having a loaded roster like this, I want to go with my absolute studs. A lot of you guys have been tuning into the channel. You've made smart waiver wire decisions. You've absolutely killed people in trades. I just want to remind you, stick with the players that got you here, because that's going to be the number one thing. Like I said, should I bench T. Higgins because he has a terrible matchup in the playoffs? Like, no, I'm going to tell you to start T. Higgins because T. Higgins has been absolutely incredible. Number two, avoid overthinking. Trust your gut. We all do this. And I do this constantly. When we are doing these start sit streams, or you're asking me those start sit questions down in the comments, which I am answering all of my comments today with those start sit questions, you want to not be overthinking it as much. Like we said, there are these guys like, should I be playing Zach Charbonnet if Kenneth Walker is out over, Joe Mixon because he got a bad matchup? Like, I will tell you to be starting Joe Mixon because he is the guy that got you here. And when in doubt, I just want you to follow your instincts, follow your gut in fantasy and in life. Typically, your gut can be wrong, but typically if you overthink things, that's the second one. We're constantly flipping in and out of our lineups. I've done that before where I had my lineup set and then it's 5 minutes before kickoff. I'm like, nope, I don't trust myself. I flip someone in there and boom, what do you know? I should have just gone with my overall gut. Number three, reassess the depth on your team, especially for high upside play. We've been putting out a video every single Saturday, which this Saturday is different because we're putting out this video to help you win your playoffs. We want to get high upside plays on the bench. Like we've been talking about before, guys like a Trey Benson, even a Jonathan Brooks as high upside stashes. And we understand that roster space, end of bench depth is super, super important. Like we said, if you're looking for a player that's going to have a low ceiling, someone that's going to get you somewhere between 10 to 12 points a game, that's not necessarily really going to help you, because if you put them in your lineup, you're going up against the other top teams in your league. You need ultimate level upside, like we said, because in the playoffs, you either got to win 2 or 3 games to win a fantasy football championship in a row, which is a lot harder when you're playing the top teams. So really for me, it's time for you to really start to ditch those players that we know, hey, they're going to get you 7 to 10 fantasy points. They're not going to be absolutely elite. Someone like a Romeo Dobbs type player, maybe someone like a Datavion Wicks. And we need to go get high upside guys, because like we said, not that Jerry Jeudy was in a stash video a few weeks ago for us, but we saw what he just did last week. And I'm not trying to say that to like toot my own horn. Like I've said a lot of stashes that haven't turned out, but having guys on the bench like that can really, while they might not have produced serious fantasy football points for you, now you can feel comfortable with a guy like Jerry Jeudy in your lineup. And the goal is for us to help you find that next Jerry Jeudy on your waiver wire. So if you got any questions, let me know down below. Number 4, target high upside backup player. Very much so along the same line as the high upside plays. We want to make sure that you have the handcuffs, because the worst thing that can happen to you in this time is your star running back your Joe Mixon, your Derrick Henry, your Saquon Barkley goes down with an injury and the waiver wire is bare, and you are not able to replace that production. So if you do not have the depth, I want to make sure that at this point in the season that you have your elite level handcuffs necessary to go on the bench. Like we said, what we just saw, if you owned Breece Hall, like if you own Breece Hall and you're making the playoffs, like congratulations, that's probably hard enough as is. But with Breece Hall potentially going to be injured for this week, if you had a guy like a Braylon Allen absolutely stashed, you're absolutely going to be feeling really good. And so for me, like I said, with Derrick Henry and Justice Hill, if we're looking at a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, having a guy like a Khalil Herbert, even if you own Bucky, making sure that Rachaad White is stashed, like all of those things are really important when you're targeting those high upside backup level players, even like a Ray Davis. Number 5, you cannot forget about rookies and sleeper picks. We just can't forget about them. Like the fantasy football playoffs, this is where it's your time to take chances. Like we cannot be afraid to go against the grain and really have players on our team or throw players out there that are improving. Like especially with some of you, when we get to week 17, when we get to week 18, I know there's some championships that happen in week 18. I know it's crazy for us in the fantasy football space, but when we get to week 17 in particular, there's going to be a lot of players that are on bye, meaning that the teams are going to be holding them out. Like there's a chance that Jamar Chase for the Bengals is not playing in week 17. There's a chance that Joe Burrow is not playing in week 17. And there's going to be a lot more players like that, both running back, wide receiver, and quarterback, that you have to kind of be taking into consideration. So really for us, this is where we can see a lot of guys like a Ricky Pearsall, a Keon Coleman as rookies really start to emerge. Maybe even a guy like an Xavier Worthy who we've been hoping for a breakout. Taking shots on those players at the end of the bench can also be super helpful. Now, do I prefer, of course, to have those high priority handcuffs? Do I, of course, want to make sure that I have plenty of depth? Sure. But like I said, taking shots on some of these bench pieces, whether it's a high upside shot, whether it is a handcuff, or whether it is some of these rookie and sleepers, make sure, very important. Now, we talk about all of that, and I'm just going to continue to talk about the end of your bench. And I understand that a lot of you do not have crazy space at the end of the bench. So I understand, but I feel like there's a piece of this there's part of this video that you're going to be able to take away that's going to be able to help with your own strategy. Number 6, we need you to be strategic with your bench. Block your opponents. So you're going to be able to look at the team. So, and this is more going to be a week by week measurement of you on the waiver wire. In some leagues, we all know, like I said, this bench spot is really prime real estate. But if you do have flexibility, making sure that you can go block players from the teams that you're going to be playing, whether it's you knowing that the team that you're about to play has an absolutely elite level running back and you go and grab that handcuff, whether it is going and blocking that team, you know, maybe they get an injury at quarterback and then you go and pick up the best quarterback even though you have an elite level quarterback so that quarterback can't play against you that next week. Sometimes you do have to be playing a little bit of 4D chess, and I know there's a lot of people in the fantasy football community that are making these decisions, helping you become a 4D chess player. My goal here on the channel is to help you answer any of those questions, but I'm also not there on your leagues. I'm not on your ESPN, your sleeper apps, looking at the teams you're about to face and then figuring out how you can best manage your roster space to, of course, block them. Because at the end of the day, if they are desperate, like we said, for a running back and you have their handcuff or you have a quarterback that they're going to need, that's only going to help you perform better. Number 7, a lot of people going into the playoffs just expect, hey, this is going to be my team for the playoff. We have seen in past years that there have been league-winning players that have emerged week in and week out. Now, this year, I feel like the waiver wire has not been as strong as some past years, but I just don't want you to sleep on the waiver wire. Even though, like we said, most of your leagues are going to be focused on, hey, do I make sure that I have the right lineup with the best players so that I do not overthink anything? I just don't want you to forget about the waiver wire. The key is really to act fast. We all know with less teams being involved, that's going to end up having better players out there on the waiver wire if they do emerge. If you do have fab, make sure you're using it wisely to help block your opponents. Like we said, Isaac Guerrero, that would have been a great player, and there's probably going to be another Isaac Guerrero type player that's going to appear over the next few weeks that's going to be able to help you push you over the top as you're heading for that overall fantasy football championship. Don't sleep on the waiver wire. Number 8, pick up defenses with strong matchups. Now, we did talk a little bit in a video earlier this week talking about like, hey, rest of season rankings, like what are some defensives, Caleb, that you absolutely love coming down the stretch? And I will say most people that stream defenses, they look at defenses the week of. If we can start, and I don't like to ever hold 2 defenses. So me telling you to hold 2 defenses after we said, hey, make sure all these other players are on your bench. I understand your guys' rosters are not infinite, but I do think coming down the stretch, when you're able to target defenses that potentially are out there that have really great matchups heading into the playoffs, I 100% want to be telling you to go target them. Like one team, for instance, would be talking about the Los Angeles Chargers, because the Chargers, now I'm not telling you to start them in week 14 versus Kansas City or Tampa Bay in week 15 or even really Denver in week 16, but week 17 they go up against New England, week 18 Vegas. Like that's a 2 matchup game that could 100% benefit you if you do go pick up the Chargers. Now, a next team would be someone like the Arizona Cardinals, who I don't love their week 17 and week 18 matchup because they're going up against the Rams in San Francisco, but week 15 going up against New England. So if you are going to be in a first round game, that's great. Or versus Carolina in week 16, which hasn't been, the best matchup as of late, but I do think that is a matchup that is super intriguing as we kind of come down the stretch. And another team that you definitely want to highlight as we're talking about looking forward is someone like the Indianapolis Colts, who's going up against Tennessee and then the Giants in week 16 and week 17. So those are like 3 different defenses that I do think could provide some value. Like we said, if you do have one of those studs like a Pittsburgh Steelers or Denver Broncos, of course you're going to be playing the matchups there. But I do think having 2 defenses, because the defense at this point in the season can make or break your team. So definitely be making sure that you do have a few different defenses that do have strong matchups. Now, number 9, as we've seen, if you do not have an elite level quarterback, if in your draft you addressed everything but the quarterback position and you've been streaming quarterbacks, make sure you have some good options. Guys like a Justin Herbert or a Bryce Young, even heading into the end of the season, some guys that might be potentially out there on waivers, I think that's valuable. Now, a lot of other teams, like we just said earlier, might be dropping their second quarterback. Like if they have Josh Allen, and this is like a team that I have Josh Allen and I have Jordan Love. So I might look to drop Jordan Love if I'm just like, you know what, screw it. Jordan Love's not going to win me the championship, but Josh Allen is. If you have options, there might be some better options that typically appear later on in the season as more people add to their team. If you're playing in a shallow waiver wire where the roster size is pretty big, guys like Justin Herbert or Bryce Young can definitely provide some streamable quarterback variability. Now, this video is starting to get long, so I want to make sure that we give you a few more tips. Number 10, be ready for injuries. We all know that that's happened. That changes. That's really why these important points of making sure you have depth, handcuffs, upside, sleepers on your team. If you have just absolute studs all the way around, that's going to help, but be ready for injuries. Number 11, we want you to stay ahead of your opponents. Like we said earlier, when you're looking at your opponent's teams, knowing their weaknesses, knowing their strengths, so that you know when something happens to their team, what they're going to do so that you can then react. Like we said, we want to be playing defense. Like some of the best defenders in the NBA, and I know I'm a fantasy football channel, but some of the best defenders in the NBA, they can make you pivot or switch your strategy. That is what we want you to do. And number 12, I just really want you to win your fantasy football league. Like that's the entire point of this video. That's why if you're still tuning in here and we're in the teams, you've been staying around for 10, 11, 12 minutes, we've gone over a lot of strategies this year. We've gone through a lot of start-sit questions. I want you to stick with your core players. We want you to pick up high upside backups, blocking your opponents and streaming those defenses and making sure that you have good matchups. The key is to really be active and smart with those decisions. If you follow these tips, these will really help maximize, even giving you just a 1% better chance of winning your fantasy football league and taking home that sweet cash prize, bragging rights, whatever it's going to be. And my goal, like I said, I am not leaving you. I'm here to help you, but I might not be perfect. I'm not a perfect fantasy football player either, but my goal is to help be a resource for you guys that, of course, help you get to that championship and win that sweet fantasy football championship. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning into this video. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new. Check out these 2 videos, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.